That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about episode 5 of the new classic series, Moon Knight, which this episode streams April 27th, 2022. We're back to director Mohamed Diab.
We watched episodes 1 through 4 like a month ago?
In very fast, back-to-back, in
Because
succession.
all of the episodes were given to you to watch at once. And then we weren't given this episode until late last night.
Until...
like an hour before it premiered.
Yeah, basically in conjunction with the premiere, basically. Very little time.
So we watched it just now.
Yeah, we sure did.
Okay, the story for episode 5 is very simple. It's the origin of Moon Knight, how Moon Knight came to be. It's the origin of Mark's alternate personality, Steven, and then the death of that personality.
Oh, ruined it right away, yes.
I mean, it's only, 47 minutes long? So, the episode 4 ends with Mark imagining himself in like a psychiatric ward, and then we see Mark and Steven meet, and it's chaos, and then there's a hippopotamus.
Wearing box braids.
So, this episode, we realize that hippopotamus is like the god of mothers and children, but she also manages the ferry in the underworld.
Her name's
She's like a bus driver as well as the god of mothers and children.
She's got to make that money. Her name's Tawaret. Think of like Charon, who guides people across the river Styx in Greek mythology.
So she tells these two, like, oh, you're dead, and you're on this boat that's going to cross this like desert ocean, and you're either going to go to paradise or to hell. And the way we decide which one you're going to is there are these scales, and she rips out their hearts, but in a very kind way. And the hearts don't look like hearts, they look like little ornaments.
They look like wax.
Like white waxy ornaments. She puts them on the scale, and on the other side of the scale is a feather.
The feather of truth.
And she says if it's balanced, you can go to paradise. So the scales aren't balancing. And she's like, well, if they don't balance, you're going to be dragged down to hell.
Which is, you exist in the pit of sand.
So she's like, well, I think I know what the problem is. Your hearts are not full. So you need to go back into the boat and then share all of like your memories with each other.
And the boat is basically this interior of this psych ward, which is a plane of untethered consciousness, which is how these two characters are imagining it. Think of Stephen King's Dreamcatcher. Do you remember and how they were trying to get inside the memories of certain characters? Which is like
in that library.
That it's
equally as stupid.
Yeah.
So then Mark and Steven are trying to share their memories, and we find out that Mark, when he was a little kid, had a younger brother, and one day they went out to play, like in these caves, and it starts to rain, and the younger brother is like, oh, our mom told us like you can't go in here when it rains, it'll be fine. They take their asses in there, and the little one drowns to death.
'Cause we all float down here.
So we find out that there's trauma associated with his little brother dying, but more so, Mark's mother becomes like violently abusive to him.
Unhinged.
Emotionally and physically. So at the peak of that abuse, we see Mark. So in the last episode, we get a clip. We talked about it, that weird like Indiana Jones ripoff movie called Tomb Buster. The main character, the Harrison Ford character, his name is Steven. So right when Mark is about to get his ass whooped by his mom, we see that he's like in his room with this poster with this Steven character. So he tells Steven, I created you to protect you from our awful mother. Okay. So that's where Steven comes from. Another thing that's happening in the episode is that Mark is having a therapy session with Ethan Hawke as his psychiatrist.
Yes.
But this is all in his mind, which we can get into it, because it's like he's dead, making his way to either heaven or hell, but is also having... it's so dumb to me. Okay.
Having a therapy session in his DID-addled mind. Mm-hmm.
And then... Okay, so that's how Steven came to be. Then Moon Knight, so then we find out Mark had joined the military, was discharged, and then was like...
Because he went AWOL in a fugue state.
which was a detail. Who cares?
I know, but it was just like,
Who cares? He used to be in the military, was discharged, and then took a job for hire, like a mercenary type thing, to go raid a tomb. And in that tomb, he gets done up. Like, he's dead. Like, dying. And while he's dying in this tomb, Khonshu, the god Khonshu, comes to him and says, I can feel your pain, blah, blah, blah. If you'll be like a shepherd for me and do my bidding.
He basically says, if you be my bodyguard, I will be your long lost pal. Basically, that's the gist.
That's basically it.
Do you remember that song?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
And Mark agrees. So then we see Mark turn into Moon Knight. So that's where Moon Knight comes from. And then the end of the episode is the hippopotamus is like, well, these scales are still unbalanced, so I guess you're going to die. And she turns the boat around, which we can get into, but to wrap it up, they're going to die. So the creatures from the sand come to grab them, and they grab Steven first. And Steven dies. And when Steven dies, the scales are balanced. And the hippo's like, look at that. Well, I guess we can take your ass to paradise. The end.
Which is a field of reeds.
I wrote down like, yeah, like, if paradise is just a fucking wheat field, I don't want to go there.
And then when one of the connections to the rest of the Marvel universe is Tower references the astral planes that you see in Black Panther and how beautiful they are.
Well, I don't know. There isn't much there. I mean, the opening, I have so many issues still. Number one, I still feel like this could have been a movie. But of course, it's a 6-part series, so of course they have to kind of find a way to tell the story that will sort of keep people engaged, and so they sort of split it up and rearrange it. But we spent 4 episodes dealing with this buffoon Steven and this like joke of a character, and then to find out that he is the manifestation of like, or based in like this ultra violent childhood
Trauma.
It just seems so tacky to me. It just seems so tacky. Like,
Well,
the grief and the trauma associated with your brother dying and your mother being abusive to you, and then Steven finds out his mother's actually dead.
it's tacky and derivative because I don't know how many series where the cliched formula is like, oh, we have to have that one episode where we stop the track and we find out what's really going on with this backstory of this character.
Then I feel like the way this character's played, I think is just whack. Like, nothing would save it. But I wish that if not episode 1, at least episode 2, we would have learned where this Steven comes from. Because for 4 episodes, it's such a huge plot point that this man is crazy and has like a split personality.
Well, I think you made a good point when like it robs us of kind of any empathy we could quickly establish for him.
Right.
That would have aided in the ridiculousness of the other episodes.
So we spent 4 episodes just being annoyed by this character. And again, not that knowing this in the beginning would have helped this terrible characterization, but I think it would have helped empathize with him as that character.
It frames it in a way that's a little bit more palatable.
Yeah.
As we get to Duat, the Egyptian underworld.
The entire time they're on that boat, I'm just like, let him die. Just let him die. Like, I'm just so annoyed by this character.
Well, I hated how that boat looked. That's been used in other films to greater effect. This just feels entirely derivative to me. I don't know.
Okay, the movie, as we were watching it, I thought the movie I'd prefer to see is that little 10-minute period where we see, like, the brother die and the mom doesn't show up to his birthdays. Like, she stays...
Oh, that's very V.C. Andrews' Flowers in the Attics.
And clearly I like that shit.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I want to see this movie where the mom is, like, ultra abusive and then the boy comes up with this split personality. That would have been so much more interesting. But at the funeral of the little brother... Mark comes down the stairs and the mom looks at him like, what are you doing here? This is your fault. And she starts screaming at him.
It's like, well, actually, you're the parent, so...
But I thought, like, so dramatic to then make this silly movie because in the same episode where the mom is like, there's grief and trauma and the mom is like screaming at this boy in a way that's so emotionally abusive. And then in the same damn, like, 5-minute sequence, you have the hippopotamus acting all cute on the boat, like, wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, I hate it.
Tacky. That's tacky as hell.
It's just so adolescent. And then they're also trying to balance the relationship with the father, who is more empathetic towards the boy. And that all goes out the window because it's so abstract.
I don't have anything else to say.
It's just super. It just feels again like so many other things now. We're just like we have to have this content, and we have.
Oh. No, I'm sorry. Finish with your thought.
And we just are going to get the maximum amount of screen time we can out of this because I read that they still are wanting to make a film about this character about Moon Knight. It's like, but why?
I'm confused for this series. Like, who's the target audience? Because I'm assuming it'd be like a PG-13 thing, but I'm just very confused. Like, the subject matter of how Moon Knight came to be and the trauma and the sort of mental illness the main character suffers from comes from a very dark place, which is to me kind of, I almost feel like Moon Knight should have the vibe of Batman.
Well,
or the Joker.
Right. And we've talked about this diagnosis in other episodes reviews. But, that used to be fodder for a lot of very exaggerated material, from Three Faces of Eve to Sybil to... There are just so many films from the 50s, 60s, 70s that deal with what was then called multiple personality disorder that was trying to take it seriously, but looking back it seems, a bit camp. And this this series is not even trying to kind of ground that in any way.
No.
So it just seems reductive.
There is a scene. So when Stephen's mother dies when he's older, so we see Oscar Isaac at the funeral and not wanting to admit that his mom's dead. And then we find out that he talks to his mom every day on the phone, but he's pretending to talk on the phone to her. And so we witness that. I thought that was kind of cringy.
It's stupid because Ethan Hawke is the therapist. Harrow says, your mom's on the phone for you, and just dials on. Again, I don't know what the title of this...
I would love to know what psychotherapists and psychiatrists think of this series.
I'm sure just as stupid as most depictions of anything that they see. But I'm going to call this episode Killers of the Flower Moon Night.
All done?
Yeah.
Listen to our podcast. Bye.